Hello guys and welcome to my channel. I'm very excited to share with you my very first doll custom video, and this video is actually part of a collaboration I did with some other amazing artists, and it was a collaboration based on video game characters. I think some pretty cool dolls came out of this collaboration, so I'm actually going to link them in the video, and you will find a link to their videos in the comment section below so you can check them out. So the character I decided to do was Catherine, the Chaos ending version of Catherine, and I started with the Gulia Yelps and I sanded her body down with a nail file just so I could get rid of all the molded details, because I was going to paint her entire body, so I didn't want any of those. I'm actually going to make some horns for her, so I started planning where I wanted the horns to go. And I'm using this wire because I wanted to give some support, so I'm building this little triangle that I'm going to use as a base, and I draw it on the skull just to define where I want the horns to go. I don't want them to be really heavy, so I don't make the entire structure out of this wire. I simply make this like pyramid shape and kind of bend the ends of the wire just to make sure it won't get out of the head once the horns are made. Excuse the state of my nails. I had a bit of a problem when I was removing the doll's original paint and my nails got really messed up, so excuse me for that. So I didn't want this video to be like a full-on tutorial because I'm kind of new to doll customizing, so I wasn't entirely sure that I was entitled to mark this a tutorial, particularly because it was a really hard video for me to edit and I kept just getting out of the camera, you know, so that isn't exactly useful. So I'm just giving you like a general idea of what I did to achieve this doll and her look. So once I have the 3 pieces that will make the horn, I just started bending and twisting it into the shape I want. So if you watch this video carefully, you will notice that I changed the shape of her horns mid-video, like in mid-cuts, because I realized that it didn't really look the way I wanted them to look, so I just started over. But once I had the shape I actually liked, I started covering the horns with aluminum foil, and this is a very important step for me because I wanted the horns to be like buff looking and like very heavy, but you don't want the actual piece to be too heavy, like to have too much clay to make it like as thick as you want, because then the doll's head will actually start like bubbling around because of the weight. I'm using a 2-part epoxy clay to kind of cover. First I covered like the entire horn, and if you are using epoxy and you want to make it a little bit more like malleable, you can add a little water. Some people use baby oil too. So after you have the basic shape of the horn, you start sculpting details. Now depending on how your epoxy works, it should take a long time to actually start drying, so you have a lot of time to start adding details. I also used epoxy clay to add details to other parts of her body. She's wearing these weird boots in the game, but I decided to sculpt them into her body. And so I gave these little like twisty details she had on her hands and also on her legs. So I basically just did these little worms out of clay and then started rolling them over themselves just to make like this sort of, I don't know, like a tentacle thingy that shows up on her arms and legs. And it was very hard because the pieces are so tiny, and you know, Monster High dolls aren't that big. I also gave her this kind of hoof like feet.
Ask you what you're thinking about. Ask you what you're dreaming about. Say your life is full of doubts. You don't know what you're talking about. You tell me what's on your mind. But how can
So I actually gave her 2 coats of white paint, and I used black paint to paint all the details on her hands and feet. Then with I started marking all the parts that made her suit, and it was a very tiring process to actually paint the inside of every single line that I made. I wasn't too worried making the lines too harsh because I was going with black over them, and the advantage you have if you do this is that even if you make a mistake, you can go over it with or with black paint later on. And this took I didn't record the entire process because it took long, and my camera, as I learned during this project, doesn't have that much power. So, and finally we can start with the face up. So for her face, I wanted to keep everything, particularly the first layers, a very bluish hue. The character design and the lighting of that scene has this kind of blue hue, so I wanted to give that kind of mystic look she has on the game. And I wanted to give her kind of a mischieving expression, and it was very important to me that she had like demon red eyes. So I didn't give her makeup, like a lot of eyeshadow and stuff, because she looks kind of like she's not very makeup at all this scene. So I just gave her some very strong eyebrows and strong eyeliner, and just a lot on making her lips look not necessarily painted, but very texturized. I'm using watercolor pencils and dry pastels.
watching you fade away? You let me disintegrate. Don't leave me on my own. Watching you fade away. You let me disintegrate. Don't leave me on my own. In the chaos, I see the bliss. In the mayhem, I see the abyss. Just when you need it.
It's very important that every time you like a step of the face-up process, you use your sealant to seal that part of the process, so that when you go back and you make a mistake, you can erase it without, you know, without fear that it will just take whatever you did before that. So I actually worked a lot on her eyebrows, for example. Those required a lot of layers just to build up into the shape I wanted them. And be very careful to add black to the very last, because black is very strong even in watercolor pencils. So black should be the very last color you add.
passing by.
So after the face is done, I basically gave her a final coat of the sealant, and now what I'm doing is giving her a very thin layer of gloss varnish on her lips and eyes to give her some. Before this, I gave her a few dots of white acrylic paint just to really bring light into her eyes. I'm still learning how to paint eyes. I see these very beautiful and detailed eyes on Instagram and on other channels, and I'm really trying to get there. And for her hair, I actually had a lot of fun with it. So I created these little wire structures, and I covered them with masking tape. This was so that to do the same as the aluminum foil, but with less weight. So I was going to cover them with tape and then with hair, and then I would actually glue them where her ears should be, because I wanted her hair to be a more prominent feature. Once it's covered with tape, I actually covered it with the same yarn that I used to make her hair. I wanted it to have a lot of volume, but I didn't want to use way too much hair because it would end up looking messy. And this is actually what I came up with. So I started gluing the hair thefts into the bigger part and then just twisted them. As you see, this piece is not done yet. But basically you twist them around the structure you made with the tape and the yarn. And the good thing about the yarn is that it won't look as harsh a transition as if you were just gluing the hair over masking tape. It makes it more, it gives her volume, but not too much. So basically you just twist the hair around and give it any shape you want. I learned this actually by looking at some cosplays. And there she is. I took a lot of pictures of her and I had quite a lot of fun just editing. I like how this doll turned out. I think she looks really pretty and her hair just looks amazing. I'm sorry I don't have a lot more footage of the process. Now I've learned about how much you actually have to record for these videos, but hey, we're all here to learn. So thank you so much for watching, guys. If you're interested in this doll, she's actually for sale on my Etsy store, so I'll link that down below. If you like this video, please share, subscribe, and give me a thumbs up. And I'll see you next time, guys. Bye!